every sentient beings. But we do not realize this, and in between this there are too many defilement mind, which we've been indulging from the beginning last time. Since it is such a long habit, that it is very easy to rise these defilements and ordinary thoughts. So therefore, whatever practice you do, as long as it is effective on our mind, then that is the best. And if it is not effective, even though no matter how advanced the practice or how good it is, as long as it does not affect, if it is not effective our mind, then it is not good. So therefore, of course, and the best way now to tame the first process to tame our mind is to do the concentration. So therefore, the concentration is very, very important. And before you do the concentration, of course, the first thing, every practice that we do is that we begin with taking refuge, which is out of faith, fear, and compassion, that we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And this will differentiate the Buddhist and the non-Buddhist. Yes. And also it then becomes the root of all the path, and it is the foundation of all the vows, and it is the thing that it is like a door towards the practice. Yes. And then after taking refuge and to create an enlightenment thought, the practice because to become really the path of enlightenment, that it is absolutely necessary in the beginning to create the right motivation, which here is the enlightenment thought, which means that as oneself do not wish to have a suffering, and as oneself wish to have a happiness, every sentient being, tiny from insects to the most intelligent human beings, that all have one common goal, and that is to have a happiness. But due to ignorance, that majority are already in the midst of suffering, and majority are, although their aim is happiness, but they create more sufferings. And so therefore, it is not appropriate to just to get oneself when all other sentient beings left in the midst of suffering. So therefore, the practice you're doing is not just for oneself, but for the benefit of all sentient beings, that one must try practice. And the only way to help the sentient beings effectively is to get ultimate enlightenment. So therefore, in order to get enlightenment, for the sake of all sentient beings, that one must attain ultimate enlightenment. And in order to get enlightenment, that since the enlightenment does not arise without its proper cause and the condition, so and the main cause here is to do the concentration. So these are the two things in the beginning of the practice, that it is very important to have the refuge and the enlightenment thought. Then the actual concentration. The purpose of concentration is actually to have to arise the insight wisdom. And this insight wisdom, in order to get enlightenment, that we need to cut the root of the self-clinging, which is the source of all the sufferings. And this self-clinging one could not cut completely unless we have the insight wisdom. Yes. And the insight wisdom will not arise without proper concentration. And the proper concentration to realize the proper concentration, that it is very important to have solitary places, the quiet place where one is free from physical activities and mental activities. And so therefore first we must keep up the worldly activities, such as I do not mean to say the permanently. Of course, permanently one could give is better, but when one is doing the concentration, that one should not think of worldly activities such as business and so forth and so on, because if one think, then it just ruins the and also the defilements and so forth and so on. And then actual practicing, in order to practice the concentration, that it is important to know the 5 faults of the concentration. And these 5 thoughts, the first one is laziness. If one is lazy, and one has no interest, then one will not make endeavor to do the concentration. So the first fault is the laziness. And second is forgetfulness. Even one makes the endeavor to concentrate, but if one forgets the instructions, the technique, the teachings on the technique how to do the concentration, if one forgets, then one could not concentrate. So therefore it is the forgetfulness is second. And then third, which has a kind of two aspects. It is called either sinking and scattering, or dullness and agitation, which means that even one is trying, but if it's thinking, which means that one is so sleepy, so kind of sleepy, that it's just like sinking, or just dullness, that one's mind is completely dull. Or the opposite, which is scattering, or the agitation, which means, or the distraction, which means mind is too wild that it could not concentrate. It just travels everywhere, every part of the world, and so forth. So that is the number 3 fault, which is the thinking and scattering, or dullness and agitation. And then the fourth fault is not applying antidote. That it is very important to watch whether one's mind is going to these 2 thoughts, like dullness or agitation. And then immediately when one knows that one's mind is going into this dullness or the agitation, then to apply antidote. So the fourth fault is not applying antidote. And the fifth fault is called applying antidote too strongly, or over-application. Yes. But if you if you apply the antidote too strongly, or overdo it, then instead of helping, that it disturbs more. So therefore the fifth fault is the over-application. So these 5 things, that it is very important to know the 5 faults of the concentration. And then now, in order to avoid these 5 faults, that it is important to know the 8 antidotes. And these 8 antidotes These are called the 8 antidotes. The first one is